using variables in Python, you need to adhere to a few rules and guidelines. Breaking some of these rules will cause errors. Other guidelines just help you write code that's easier to read and understand. And be sure to keep the rules in mind when working with variables. So first, let's start with variable names. So variable names can contain only letters, numbers, and underscores. They can start with a letter or an underscore, but not with a number here. For instance, you can call variable message underscore 1. So you can define variables like this, but you cannot define 1 underscore message, but not like this. And this is a mistake because you cannot define a variable that starts with a number, right? So this is a mistake. And you cannot define variable with spaces here. So avoid, and also avoid using Python keywords and function names as variable names. For example, do not use word as print as a variable name. So Python has reserved it for a particular programmatic purpose. And variable names should be short but descriptive. For example, name is better than n, or student name is better than sn, right? So, and so the name length here is better than length of person's name, right? So be careful when using the lowercase letters and uppercase letter, the lowercase letter L and uppercase letter O here, because they could be confused with the numbers 1 and 0. And it can take some practice to learn how to create a good variable names, especially as your programs become more interesting and complicated. As you write more programs and start to read through the other people's code, you will get better at coming up with meaningful names. So, and avoid name errors when using variables as well. So every programmer makes some mistakes, and most make mistakes every day. Although good programmers might create errors, and they also know how to respond to those errors efficiently. So let's look at an error you're likely to make early on and learn how to fix it. So here we will write some code that generates an error on purpose. So now we'll write this following message. So message, my super mega message, and message here, and we will make this message, for example, hello every student from your instructor Typhoon here. And here we will print this message, print my super mega message. So when, let's run this here. This is, so when an error occurs in your program, the Python interpreter does its best to help you figure out where the problem is. The interpreter provides a traceback when a program cannot run successfully. So a traceback is a record of where the interpreter ran into trouble when trying to execute your code. Now we will write this. For example, this code is successfully interpreted here and run. And let's delete this S from the message, and let's run it. And as you can see here, this is our traceback. This is an example of traceback that Python provides after you accidentally misspelled a variable's name. So here we will need an S here, right? So and as you can see here, the name my super mega message is not defined here, and we have an error in line 2. And the output reports that an error occurs in line 2 of the file of main.py. So the interpreter shows this line to help us spot the error quickly and tells us what kind of error it found. And in this case, it found a name error, and here name error, and reports that the variable being printed message has not been defined. That's because we entered the wrong value in it. And in a name error usually means we either forgot to set a variable's value before using it, or we made the spelling mistake when entering the variable's name as we did here. And if the Python finds a variable name that's similar to that one, it doesn't recognize, it will ask if that's the name you meant to use. So in this example, we omitted the letter S in the variable name my super mega message in the second line. So the Python interpreter doesn't spell check your code, but it does ensure that the variable names are spelled consistently. For example, watch what happens when we spell message incorrectly in the line that defines the message here. So let's make it again, and as you can see here, our code is run successfully. So in this case, the program runs successfully, right? So the variable names match. So Python sees no UGM. So as a result, and programming languages are strict, but they disregard good and bad spelling. So as a result, you don't need to consider English spelling and grammar rules when you're trying to create variable names and writing code. So many programming errors are simple, single character typos in one line of program. If you find yourself spending a long time searching for one of these errors, know that you are in a good company. And many experienced and talented programmers spend hours hunting down these kinds of tiny errors and try to laugh about it and move on. So knowing it will happen frequently throughout your programming life. And we also need to know about variables. So variables are labels. So variables are often described as boxes like this that you can store values in it. So for example, let's name it the variable. Oh, sorry, let's actually get the pen. So let's make it variable, and we have the value. So the idea can be helpful. This idea can be helpful the first few times you use a variable, but it isn't an accurate way to describe how variables are represented internally in Python. So it's much better to think of variables as labels that you can assign to values. You can also say that a variable references a certain value. So this distinction probably won't matter much in your initial programs, but it's worth learning earlier rather than later. At some point, you will see unexpected behavior from a variable, and an accurate understanding of how variables work will help you identify what's happening in your code. And the best way to understand new programming concepts is to try using them in your program. So if you get stuck while working on exercise in this course, try doing something else for a while. So if you are still stuck, review the relevant part of that section and watch this lecture again. If you still need help, you can ask me anytime and I will answer you immediately.